There's a lot of people out there that think that in order to build wealth in the stock market, it's all about finding that one stock, that one needle in the haystack that you're able to get when the price is low, ride the wave all the way to the top. And if you miss out on any of those moves on stocks like Nvidia or Apple, whenever they were in their infancy, then it's just going to make it so much harder for you, almost impossible, to actually build wealth. Look, I've got some notes here. I'm going to be referring to those throughout the portion of this video. I want to make sure that I'm being very nice and concise for you guys as I go through my thoughts on this, because I want to make sure I'm not just rambling on. And one of the very first things that come to my mind is that building wealth is often an extremely slow process, especially in the beginning, whenever you have little or no money to either invest into the market. Now, look, when I first started investing in the stock market, I started with a little bit of money, and it seemed like it took forever for my account to actually start to grow. I would check it every so often, and it just seemed like it was stagnant. And more oftentimes than not, especially in the beginning, my account was usually red. I didn't see much movement, and it frustrated me. And there were times where I just stopped investing altogether because I thought it was just a waste of time. It was never going to work for me. The investments that I was making were wrong, and they were never going to be the ones that catch fire and go to the moon. We only hear about the stocks where people invest in and then overnight they become millionaires. But we never hear about the thousands of other stocks that just doesn't happen to. So one of the very first things that I often tell people, especially whenever we're in coaching sessions, is that it's going to take a while for your account to actually get rolling, and you need to have some patience to ensure that you give your account an opportunity to grow. I previously made a video about how compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. And look, if you are consistent and you continue to invest in your accounts over a long period of time, you're going to see some success as long as you're invested in solid companies. Staying consistent with investing, even when your account looks like there's not a lot of movement going on, is definitely something you have to make sure that you set your mind to, that can and will happen, especially early on in the process. And that brings me to my next point, which is don't beat yourself up. I have so many people that have left comments on videos and in just general everyday conversations where people say, oh, it's too late for me to get started. Oh, I wish I would have started whenever I was in my 20s. Now, that's true. If you can get started with investing earlier in life, it's always going to be a better outcome for you. You have a longer period of time to invest and let your investments compound. But I truly believe that it's never too late to get started with investing, which segues right into my next point, which is don't beat yourself up, especially early on in the process when you don't have a lot of money to invest. You might only have $50 every time you get paid to put into your investment. But guess what? Having some activity, which is investing, is better than having no activity at all, which is not investing. Sitting on the sidelines and not being active with your investments is going to set you back way more than just being able to invest $50 or $100 every single month. When you first start investing in the stock market, especially with a little bit of money, and you finally start to see some movement in your account, it almost becomes like a game. You start to look at it and you try to figure out ways where you can find more money to invest. You may start it out with $100 and then you start to see, oh, my account went up 3%, 4%. And you're starting to figure out, okay, if I don't do A, B, and C, I have more money that I can pull and put into that investment. And then after a while, you just start to just build this habit of trying to figure out more ways to kind of feed the beast. Because over time, and you're going to have that snowball effect where it's just going to start getting bigger and bigger and bigger over time. Next point on this is that it's never too late to get started with investing. So many people beat themselves up and they say, man, if I only started investing whenever I was in my 20s, I'm 50 now, and it's too late for me. That could not be further from the truth. Look, is it better to start investing whenever you're in your 20s? Yes. I'm not going to lie to you, because compound interest over a long period of time will beat being able to invest larger amounts of money later on in life. But that doesn't mean that you should sit on the sidelines and not get active, right? We need to make sure that we understand that we may be behind the eight ball from a time perspective, but we still have an opportunity to build up an account that'll help supplement our income in our future, whether that's a 401k, a 403b, a pension, whatever it may be. Being able to work on increasing your net worth now is always going to help you in the future. So never worry about, is it too late to get started? Just get started. My next point hits home for me. I used to think that there was a magic number that I could hit that would make me happy. If only I had an additional $100,000 in my 401k, or if only I made an additional $50,000 a year, that would change and my happiness would increase. But I'm here to tell you that that's not always the truth. Now, of course, whenever you make more money, you can buy nicer things, you can have more things. But if you're not happy with how your life is going, how things are structured, money's not going to make a difference. And I used to hear people say that, and I thought they were crazy. Man, they're crazy. They're making all this money and they're talking about happiness. There's not a direct correlation between the two. Yes, money can do things for you, like buy back your time and maybe give you burst of happiness, but it doesn't give you overall happiness. Whenever you're thinking about how much money you need from a wealth perspective in order to feel comfortable, that's going to be a different number for everyone. But it really doesn't matter if you have all of this money and all of this stuff, but you're just not a happy individual overall. And the next point is, I always hear about how you need to diversify. You got to diversify your investments. You don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. I don't believe that. I used to. And here's what I mean by that. There are so many people out there that may have 15, 20, 25 different stocks that they're investing in. But when you look at their portfolio, 6 of them are anchoring their entire portfolio. It's like the 80-20 premise, right? Where 80% of your income or your revenue comes from 20% of what you're putting into it. And once I started to understand that, I started to think, why have 20 or 25 stocks when 6 of them are actually pulling in 80% of my portfolio's value, whenever I can take the money that I was diverting to those investments and put them into the investments that are actually driving my portfolio? I truly believe that over diversification is one of the reasons why a lot of people get stagnant in their portfolios and they don't grow as much as they could or they should. All right, so let's talk about investing education. Right now, there are so many platforms out there that can help you understand how to invest or to help you to come up with a plan to invest. And I believe it's great to go out there and soak up this knowledge, especially if it's free, right? There's a lot of free investment advice and updates out there that you can go and to help you make informed decisions. But I think that it could also work as a double-edged sword, meaning you can have a little bit of paralysis from analysis. And what I mean by that, if you're listening to 15 different people give their perspective on how to invest and what you should be doing, you get to a point to where a lot of the advice that you're listening to contradicts the other advice that you're listening to. So I'm not saying not to go out there and to educate yourself from a financial perspective, but I would just be careful that you're not getting all of your information from so many different places to where it paralyzes you and prohibits you from making a decision. Because remember, we talked about inactivity versus activity. So you want to make sure that you have activity with good information. There's a lot of information out there that can help people to get started with investing and ultimately building out their net worth. But some people need just a little push, a little bit of extra information and motivation so they can understand that you don't get to level 10 without starting at level 0.